Micah Parsons, he rushed the passer 9 times against the Packers because they were really banged up. Anthony Barr out. This time he is going to play more on the edge. I don't know why they use him at linebacker so much anyway. It's like having Patrick Mahomes. It's like, oh, let's see if Patrick Mahomes plays strong safety. No, just play him a quarterback. Play Micah Parsons at edge. I think he's going to have a big day, and I think that the Cowboys are going to blow out the Minnesota Vikings as 1.5-point favorites.
All right, Dak Prescott throwing, passing yards, 256.5 yards.
Yeah, he's been under this number a lot, but I'm actually going over here just because 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks to face the Vikings have thrown for at least 300 yards. And so because the Vikings' run defense is so good, that's how they move the balls through the air. Give me the over 256 on Dak Prescott passing yards.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. I am Jay Croucher.
Where we never get anything wrong.
Never get anything wrong.
You only saw 2 of the calls, but if you didn't watch any of the show yesterday, literally every single prediction we made came true.
Battle of the 1,000.
It was when you said Matt Breida will outscore Saquon Barkley, I think people thought you were crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't.
When you said Josh Palmer, who will be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver in a game in which Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are active, we thought people thought we were crazy.
I called Cade York over Kadarius Toney.
1,000%. When we said, listen, if you have a flex position, bench Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and start Brett Maher in that spot. If he can play a kicker, right?
Out.
Exactly.
One of the great performances.
Nailed every single promotion. Well, those were 2 predictions that we did actually nail. There were definitely some misses as well. But listen, did we let down the defense the way Zach Wilson did? No.
No, we did not.
To quote the great Zach Wilson.
All right, let's get straight into some Roto World headlines. There are plenty.
As we welcome everyone into the happy hour, we always got to tell everyone it's noon on Monday on a Peacock, but it's
5 o'clock somewhere.
Thank you, Jay. That's all I'm asking.
London, I believe.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Drinks
London,
up.
Chaps. Bottoms up. Chaps.
Bottoms up. Chaps. All right. The Minnesota Vikings.
Glug. What's interesting is the words glug glug.
Yes.
Universal. Doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter what country you're from. You could be living in a cave.
Yeah, you know.
And I just go glug glug.
Yeah. Well, if you are living in a cave, I hope you're doing okay, and I hope that you're on the
Dallas
Dallas Cowboys
know what that
minus
means.
1.5.
And they would take their little half-open coconuts and.
This is a strange glug tangent.
I'm just saying it's universal. We speak the universal language
of glug. All right.
And love.
Dallas Cowboys blow out the Minnesota Vikings, Matthew, 40-3.
You love that.
People thought people were confused that 1.5 the Cowboys were favored. Turned out they should have been favored by 36.5, and they just annihilated the Minnesota Vikings. It was the Tony Pollard show. It was the Dak Prescott show. CeeDee Lamb didn't do a great deal outside of having one of the best catches of the season. But I think the story is Tony Pollard. Can he still be an RB1 going forward with Ezekiel Elliott? Still getting 15 carries yesterday.
Yeah, look, and showed the explosiveness. And what was interesting here is that they actually used him. Finally, for the love of Pete, can we put Tony Pollard in the passing game? And we did. He got 6 targets, 6 for 109, and the 2 scores, including the 68-yarder that you see there on your screen. That's what we've been waiting for. Going into the season, we're like, look, Zeke's going to be the guy between the tackles, but they're going to try to use Tony Pollard's speed and mobility and versatility in space, getting the ball in these dump-offs, let him beat out. And you know what? They finally did it. It only took them 11 weeks, Mike McCarthy. Don't get me started on Mike McCarthy, because you know what? At least for today, he is the champion, 40-3 over the Vikings. And even Mike McCarthy, who's one of my least favorite coaches in the NFL, can't be dumb enough to go hey, we shouldn't do that anymore. Right? You know what I mean? Even he's got to be oh, that actually worked. The thing that other people have been saying all year long about, hey, Tony Pollard should be used in the passing game. Oh, wow, it worked. So, yes, I don't know that there's anything from yesterday's performance that goes away. I think if you're Dallas, you feel really good about how that. Listen, it's 40-3 against a team that had just 1 loss coming into the game, Jay. But Ezekiel Elliott between the tackles, pounding the in stuff close. Tony Pollard spreading the defense, using him, getting him mismatched on linebackers, taking advantage of his speed and versatility as well. I think for our purposes, next week, at least in my rankings, will be very similar to what they were this week, which is
15 and 25.
I had Tony Pollard at 15. I had Zeke at 25. Look, we didn't expect multiple touchdowns from each guy. Pollard winds up running back 1 as we head into Monday Night Football. Zeke is running back 10. But the fact of the matter is Zeke has now had back-to-back games with 2 touchdowns. He's had at least 15 touches in 6 of the last 7 games. He's not going anywhere. The volume will be there. The in-close opportunities should likely be there. But Tony Pollard is just the better running back to the eye test, to everyone's test, right?
Yes, he passes every single test, the glug test, any test that you want. I think that what you're hoping for is that it's, I guess, 50-50 in terms of the split of carries, and then Pollard gets all the receiving work. Because that has been a trend, is that Zeke just isn't getting any pass-catching work this year. So you want that to go to Pollard because he's clearly the more explosive player in the pass game. And I think that this Dallas offense is good enough that it can support both of them and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott and Dalton Schultz all as viable fantasy starters.
Tony Pollard ran a route on 51% of his snaps, which is great. And I would guess, without having the research in front of me, I would be shocked if that was not a season high for Pollard. So feels like, and maybe you can say like, hey, give a pass to McCarthy because Dak gets injured early, and then they've got Cooper Rush, and then they're just trying to sort of like manage it with Cooper Rush. But given how well that Cowboys defense is playing, you feel pretty good about them, especially given that they're playing on Thursday, Thanksgiving, as is tradition. They're home to a suddenly vulnerable New York Giants. I mean, the Giants got exposed, I think, by the Lions. We'll talk about the game in a little bit here, but we talked about that on Fantasy Football pregame as well, that we liked the Lions to upset the Giants. It was also Ahmed's bold call.
Yes.
Props to Ahmed.
1 for 1.
Lions are his team. Feels like another big game is coming for the Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
I feel like the bottom is falling out of the Giants, and we'll get to them, but Wan'Dale Robinson, he's torn his ACL, unfortunately. Adoree Jackson is out for 4 to 6 weeks, too. They've got other defensive players banged up. So I think that, look, that line right now on BetMGM is Cowboys minus 8.5. I think it'll probably close minus 10.5, and I'd still probably be taking the Cowboys. That feels like a blowout. And the team that just got blown out by the Cowboys, the now 8-2 Minnesota Vikings, who after that have a negative point differential on the season despite being 8-2. And look, just when you look at the screen and the performances from the Minnesotans, everyone did poorly. Dalvin Cook was okay on the ground but didn't get a touchdown or the receiving work. TJ Hawkinson fine, but Cousins, Jefferson, Thielen, just the disaster.
Hawkinson dropped 2 touchdowns, one of which he absolutely should have had, one of which he would have had to make a good play, but it's a play he's made before, which, by the way, just not for nothing. Like, and I get that the show, look, most of the show is about you guys, okay? Most of the show is me pouring out my heart, pouring out my brain for you at home. This one's about me and me only. So I'm in a guillotine league, right?
Oh, here we go.
I'm in a guillotine league, right? And so in a guillotine league, if you're the lowest scoring team in the league, you get chopped. And so I have a great team in this guillotine league. Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, Michael Pittman. Like, it's Josh Allen. It's a great team.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore, Jay Croucher. You know why? Because everyone that I just mentioned didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Not one of them. Oh, no. Here, Matt Breida, take a freaking touchdown. I also have Devin Singletary in that league. Now, he's the only guy of that long list of superstars, Devin Singletary. And yet, there's one other guy, my buddy Guillermo. Guillermo has a terrible team. He had to start Devontae Smith. He started Gabe Davis. You don't start volatile players like that in guillotine, right? It's dumb. It's a dumb move. And yet those 2 guys scored touchdowns. And so we were going down, and I'm down by 5 points. I'm down by 5 points to lose this guy. I've got a better team than him top to bottom. I just mentioned all those superstars. None of whom can get in the end zone. And so you know what happens? You know what happens? There it is. Look at my team. Look at that. T.J. Hawkinson. If he just catches one of the 2 touchdowns he should have caught, one of those 2 stupid touchdowns, I'm still alive in my guillotine league. Because, God forbid Josh Allen throw more than 1 touchdown pass. God forbid Saquon Barkley gets more than 30 yards against the Lions. The Lions, Saquon Barkley. Oh, Michael Pittman, Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown. That one game just absolutely tanked me. I thought at least one guy would do something. For the love of all that is holy and good, Jalen Hurts. Quez Watkins? Why are we throwing it to Quez Watkins?
It's good, Quez.
A.J. Brown is there. Miles Sanders is there. Michael Pittman. Come on, Matt Ryan. For once, try not to get sacked. Throw it to Michael Pittman.
Loves getting sacked, Matt Ryan.
I'm just.
You didn't like
it was It's brutal. And then Alvin Kamara, you're playing the Rams. You're at home. Juwan Johnson again? Really, Andy Dalton?
The best tight end in the league.
Could we just dump it off to
Travis Kelce?
Again, I needed 5 points. That entire team of superstars, taking the quarterback out of it, that entire team of superstars called one touchdown.
Yeah.
Do you understand how hard it is to have 7 legitimate offensive stars that score only 1 touchdown over the course of a day? Do you know how hard it is? Well, I did it. I did it with my guillotine league.
It's good. It was a good lineup.
It was. You're right to use the past tense.
Yeah.
It was a good lineup. It no longer exists. It's in the ether. It's done. It's now there for the rest of my guillotine league to pick over. Like, pick over like you're at a garage sale. Ooh, maybe I'll get a Camaro.
Scraps.
Maybe I'll get Barkley. Oh, do I want a Josh Allen or not? I don't know. Let me just go. All my carcass just there, laying out dead. All because T.J. Hawkinson couldn't come down with 1 of 2 touchdowns he should have had. Wow. I didn't need both of them. I just needed 1. Just needed 1, Jay Croucher.
You didn't like Saquon's 15 for 22?
I did not.
You didn't like the 22 yards on the ground?
No, against Detroit.
That's the one. You're taking shots at T.J. Hawkinson. Saquon going 15 for 22.
Was a killer. Was a kill. He was playing the Lions.
Yeah.
The Lions.
Matt Breida. MB.
Matt Breida.
The real and only living MB left in that league.
Matt Breida.
Yeah.
Dayball. Do you understand what you've done to me, Brian Dayball and Saquon Barkley? I am a diehard since I was 5 years old Washington Commanders fan. You know this, right?
Yeah.
And so when you grow up, as I have, a Commanders fan, Giants. You know what you are?
Yeah.
You are a Cowboys hater.
Yeah.
You are a Cowboy. You hate the Cowboys.
Sure.
And yet, this Thanksgiving against the New York Giants, how about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys? I hope they dominate them.
Yeah.
I hope they dominate them.
Yeah. Let's go, Dak.
I hope they crush them like a grape. Just like that team did to my soul.
Yeah. All right, have some tequila. Let's go on to Sunday Night Football.
I admit, this is my second glass. Pre-game show. I mean, you understand, I'm very bitter.
You're fired up. Also fired up, every fan in Kansas City after what Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in football, did against the Chargers. But I think the story is mainly the injuries.
That felt good to get out.
Yeah? You happy? You can.
No, I'm not happy. But at least I'm I needed to come out.
Yes.
It needed to come out because you know what? I'm here for a long day. I'm so frustrated. I go home. My kids are in bed. I kiss my kids on the forehead. My wife's asleep. I kiss her goodnight.
I don't know the
rage.
I
can't. Yeah, they don't know the rage.
Yeah.
They just I'm just daddy. Oh, how was work today? It was fine. I saw you on TV. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, love bug. I can't.
They don't know.
They don't understand.
They don't know the demons chained inside you. The T.J. Hawkinson, Matt Breida demons.
Right, exactly. They don't
clawing at each other with brass knuckles.
They don't see me tossing and turning in my bed, so freaked out, so upset, I literally took 2 Ambiens last night to go to sleep. I swear to God.
This is what you've done to Matthew Berry, Brian Dayball.
I just Brian Dayball.
Okay, well.
My dumb guillotine league. All right, yeah.
It wouldn't have been a problem if you had Patrick Mahomes
in
your team because he's really good.
Yeah, he's good.
He's quite good. Let's go
is there anything we need to talk about Patrick Mahomes? I don't think so.
He's going to win MVP. He's going to walk to it now. I don't see any doubt there. But
what's his line at that?
Minus 150.
Oh, sorry, right. You're not even getting right. You're not even getting plus money.
Well, I think it's still a bet. It's still a bet. He should be minus 250. Let's talk about some of the injuries though in that game. I think that's the most relevant fantasy element to come out of it. Mike Williams comes back from the high ankle sprain, immediately injures his ankle again. Kadarius Toney does his hamstring, as he is prone to, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who did get a carry, which he didn't do last week, he injures his ankle, and it becomes the Isaiah Pacheco show. So what are we doing with these injuries, Matthew? I think it's Josh Palmer, it's Juju Smith-Schuster when he comes back, and then it's Isaiah Pacheco.
Isaiah Pacheco is the clear sort of winner here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his snap percentage has decreased for 5 straight games prior to the injury. I mean, we liked Pacheco. I talked about him on Football Night in America. We talked about him on Fantasy Football Pregame as well. We thought Pacheco would have a nice game given how the Chargers came to the game as the second worst run defense over the last month. And so Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury sort of gives an excuse to the Chiefs to do what they've been wanting to do all along, which is go to Pacheco and McKinnon. It's sort of a 1-2 punch with Pacheco, the early down guy, McKinnon, the passing down back. So that's your answer there, is if Pacheco's still out there, he should be the number 1 waiver claim. We'll see how long CEH is out with the ankle injury. We'll get an update probably later today. Tomorrow will be the waiver wire show. Kadarius Toney, hard to say, right? Because again, we know Mecole Hardman isn't coming back. He's on IR. He's out for at least 3 more games. But how bad is Juju Smith-Schuster? Certainly it was nice that Kadarius Toney played a lot of snaps on the first drive, played a lot of them. Like it looked like he was going to have a significant role in the game, and then he leaves as well with that hamstring injury. Remember, this is a guy who missed 5 games with the Giants with a hamstring injury. Those soft tissue injuries, are always nervous, especially for speed guys, especially for guys with his skill set. So we'll hope for the best with Kadarius Toney until we know more. But feels like making up for him, it's kind of be a committee, right? I mean, last night it was a lot of Travis Kelce.
Well, that's the problem.
But you saw some Justin Watson. I mean, you saw some Noah Gray. Sky Moore got into the mix as well, right? And then, does Juju come back next week? I don't know.
The problem is that you're going to hunt through this committee and hunt for your Sky Moores, and the answer is only Travis Kelce, because he's the guy he's the only guy who's going to be consistent. He's going to be 90 yards and a touchdown each week, and it's just going to be spread amongst the other guys.
And to be clear, Travis Kelce is the answer no matter the question.
Yes.
Right. Who would you like your sister to date? Travis Kelce.
Yes.
Who would you like to go bowling with? Travis Kelce. Who's going to win you your fantasy game? Travis Kelce. Oh no, I'm trapped. I'm trapped in the woods with a bear. Who will save me? Travis Kelce. Yeah, exactly.
Who won Best Supporting Actor in 2018? Travis Kelce.
Right.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what the question is. The answer is always Travis Kelce. Looks like, we got to figure out this issue in the Ukraine. Who do we send in? Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
You know what? Like Russia, Ukraine, get in a room with Travis Kelce. I bet you both come out happy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it doesn't matter what the question is. The answer is always and forever Travis Kelce.
He's something else. Also something else last night was Josh Palmer, who really produced. Last night, he gets 10 targets.
How many weeks are we look, oh, no, Mike Williams, no, the Chargers. It was a bad week for me. I'm going to totally cop to this, right?
Very frazzled today.
Hang on. Football Night in America. I do my BetMGM breakdown with Chris Sims every single week. It usually goes pretty well.
Okay.
It goes pretty well.
Sure.
You know what my 2 bets were last night?
What were they?
I'm going to tell you. So first off, over 5.5 receptions for Austin Eckler.
Sure.
Over 5.5 receptions for Austin Eckler. He'd done that. He'd hit that number 4 straight games, 7 of 9 total games this year. He had 9 the previous game against Kansas City. No team in the NFL gives up more receptions to opposing running backs than the Kansas City Chiefs. I felt pretty good about Austin Eckler over 5.5 receptions. He got 2.
Yeah.
Right? And then I also had Mike Williams anytime touchdown.
That one
he scored. Third in. But, there you go. And, of course, Josh Palmer, who, we've been riding all season long, and we're like, Josh Palmer, I'm just telling you, there's a talented kid. He's a talented kid. And with no Mike Williams and no Keenan Allen, he should get a lot of looks. And what happened is every once in a while he'd have a nice game, but really for the entire stretch of it, Justin Herbert's like, I'm just going to dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. Here you go, Austin Eckler, just take a ton of receptions. And so last night, with everyone back, you're like, okay. And does he dink and dunk again? No, he does not. Even though that's a place to attack the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, most receptions allowed to opposing running backs. The 2 times he actually do it, they for only reason credited him with 3, but with 2. But I felt like there were 3 receptions to Eckler. Those 3 plays were all huge plays. The Chargers moved the ball. But would they do that? No, Brandon Staley. Why would I want to do this thing? Why would I want to get the ball in my best player's hand? That makes no sense. Why would I want the ball in my best player's hands? It's crazy talk.
Yeah.
Hey, Isaiah Spiller. Let's get you a lot of run.
Isaiah Spiller signing.
Yes, and Isaiah. And I like Isaiah Spiller. I grew up in College Station, Texas A&M Aggie, Giga Mags. That's my team. I like Isaiah Spiller. I'll tell you this: if Isaiah Spiller were right here, we'd say, "Are you as good as Austin Eckler?" He'd be like, "No, I'm not. No." And he's not. So anyway, whatever. The fact of the matter is that yes, in the game that we didn't think Josh Palmer would do anything because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were there, he goes off. Yep. He has a monster game. He does what we thought he had the ability to do, what we saw in the preseason, what we've seen from flashes for him throughout the year. So, yes, if Mike Williams' injury is serious, he aggravated this high ankle sprain, then, we're back in on Josh Palmer.
Yep, it's fine. When you're wrong on Football Night in America, not many people watch that show. It's only like 20
So you don't think anyone saw that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, thank God.
I think they missed it. They missed it. All right, let's go on to...
Because that would hurt my reputation. I don't want to... I don't want to...
Over 5.5?
Yeah.
Come on. All right.
I mean, just what are we doing?
Bills defeat the Browns, Matthew, in Detroit. 31-23 was looking a bit iffy early, but then they steamrolled the pretty listless Cleveland Browns. Josh Allen, not great. I don't think that really means anything. Obviously, you're starting Josh Allen
They missed a couple games of practice. They had to have their neighbors and weirdly, Travis Kelce helped them out, shoveling snow and get them out. Seriously, I don't know. You didn't see it like he's got Bills gear on, but Travis Kelce was in there helping because there's nothing he can't do.
It's quite a week, Travis.
Tried this week, but less than 200 passing yards for the first time this season. But he's had less than 20 fantasy points in 3 out of 4 games. 3 of the last 4, I will say, didn't really use his legs that much. Under 10 rushing yards. This is for the first time since week 10 of last season. But here's my question. On the season, he's quarterback 2 on a points per game basis. But here's his upcoming schedule. At Detroit, at New England. He plays Detroit on Thursday, obviously on Thanksgiving. Then he's at New England, home to the Jets. And then home to Miami. It's getting obviously a lot colder in Buffalo. You're still starting Josh Allen. He's still Josh Allen. But if we were redrafting today, is he your number 1 quarterback? Is he your number 2?
It's Mahomes, Fields, and then Allen's in a cluster, I think, particularly with the weather now. Like, if you could trade Josh Allen for Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow, I think those guys are in the same mix as him just because his passing yards go down in the second half of every season because it gets cold in Buffalo, as we know.
I want to know what's going on with Justin Fields' injury, but assuming Justin Fields is fine and continue to play, rest of the way, I would rather have Justin Fields. I would definitely rather have Patrick Mahomes. I'd rather have Jalen Hurts, my fantasy ride or die. And I think you can make an argument. I think I'm probably still sticking with Allen over Burrow and Herbert. But yes, if you could get Herbert or Burrow plus a piece, like a usable number 2 running back, then I think it's something to consider. I guess my point is I no longer think he is consensus overall number 1 quarterback in fantasy, which is what he was coming into the season. Too many weeks, it's taking them too long to get going. And we know there'll be some big games down the stretch, and he's still going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback the rest of the way, easy, no questions asked. It's just like, you drafted him to be elite of the elite, and he's in a cluster with some other people, and that's not what you drafted him to be.
Yep, I think Lamar and Tua are in that discussion as well. Let's go to Devin Singletary, who all of a sudden is getting in the end zone for fun. 2 touchdowns last week. He gets 20 total touches, 97 yards, and a touchdown again against the Browns, and he's looking more like a really high-end RB2 at this point.
Yes, 5th straight week now that he's played at least 72% of the snaps, season high in rush attempts and rushing yards. We liked Devin Singletary coming to the game. He was on my love list. We talked him up as a top 15 play. We talked about the fact, I believe we took the over on him in Prop Shop. But like we were in on him because the Browns are so poor against the run, but also because, originally we thought it was going to be a cold weather game, and then again with not a lot of time to prepare because they're so busy just trying to get out of Buffalo into Detroit. We thought they would lean on the run game, and they did. Not only Devin Singletary, who finishes as running back 9 for the week as we head into Monday Night Football, but how about James Cook? They're a very talented rookie. When they traded for Nyheim Hines, Jay, the thought process was like, oh, all right, well, so much for James Cook. I guess he's more of a Dynasty League stash. But, he has 11 for 86 yards in this game. He's averaging 5.8 yards per carry on the season. Over 13 yards per reception this season, looks the part. If there's one concern, he played on just 25% of the snaps. Like, his production didn't match the usage.
Yep, I'm with you there. Also, I don't think we did the Bills game for Proper Shot, so I like that you snuck in that little W on the Devin Singletary over.
It was during a commercial break.
Yeah, it was during commercial.
This much you can. So I don't remember what we did during Proper Shot. I know that we were in on.
We liked Devin Singletary.
We liked Devin Singletary. We talked him up quite a bit throughout the show. He was on my love list as well. I definitely know I talked about him during the ranking segment, where I talked him up in a positive manner as well.
Amari Cooper, the neutral designation.
But no, I think we need to go a little bit more on James Cook. Is James Cook somebody that you're picking up? Do you think this was a fluke, Jay Croucher? Do you think, hey, as it gets colder, they want more of a two-headed approach here, and both guys are viable? Is James Cook's more just insurance for Devin Singletary? Where are you on James Cook?
Where am I as a man on James Cook? Look, I'd be a little bit worried about Nyheim Hines as well, cutting into that time. I think that James Cook, I don't think he's necessarily going to get a bigger and bigger role as the season goes on with the pass catching, just because the passing goes down in general as it gets colder. So I think he's mainly an insurance back for Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary is one trending in the right direction. But yeah, if you've got Devin Singletary, certainly you want James Cook on your bench.
Yeah, and I think he's an upside guy. That offense can be explosive enough that you want pieces of it. I don't think I'm starting James Cook next week against Detroit on Thanksgiving, unless it's like on a one-game DFS slate. But I would like to have him on my roster.
Okay, let's talk quickly on Amari Cooper, who the neutral designation means that he's allowed to have a big game because it's not really a road game. He shakes those struggles, finishes as wide receiver 2, 113 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, just a monster game from Cooper.
Yeah, really good. 5th straight game this year with double-digit targets. It'll be interesting to see what happens to this Browns offense when Deshaun Watson takes over, because for whatever you think of Jacoby Brissett, I think he's certainly, my takes are 2 things. He's been better than advertised, better than people expect, and then a third bonus thing that I didn't even tell you about, I think he's been better for Amari Cooper than people thought as well. He's been really good for Amari Cooper. Honestly, good for Donovan Peoples-Jones, who gets into the end zone and has another good game, somebody that we sort of talked about as well. They're home to Tampa Bay. So, again, the home road splits. Like we talked about the fact that going from outdoors in Buffalo to indoors on a neutral site we thought would ultimately be good for Cooper. He was my wide receiver 21. He's wide receiver 2. I didn't expect the 2 touchdowns here, but obviously you're starting Amari Cooper no matter what. Home to Tampa Bay, then at Houston. At Cincinnati will be a conversation, but then home to Buffalo. But 3 of the next 4 you feel good about Amari Cooper, no doubt.
Yep. All right, let's go to New Jersey, where the Lions lit up the New York Giants, and Jamal Williams was the big story. Gets 3 rushing touchdowns against the Giants. Looks like he is the clear, locked-in guy in Detroit going forward over DeAndre Swift.
But nothing short of amazing. It's his 4th game this year with over 20 fantasy points. DeAndre Swift has 1 such game. Right? And even when Swift is active, here's the thing. A lot of people are like, we know they like him at the goal line, but what happens when DeAndre Swift is active? We talked about the fact that, hey, we're still starting him. We talked on Fantasy Football Pregame. If you looked at my rankings throughout the week, also on the love list as well, that, hey, Jamal Williams is somebody that I don't care if Swift is active or not. In games in which DeAndre Swift is active this season, he's averaging basically 17 touches a game. And we know he gets all the goal line work. He leads the NFL in goal-to-go carries. That was a stat coming into the game. Obviously, he converts 3 in this one as well. 12 rushing touchdowns. That is 5 more goal line carries than any other running back in the NFL. He's actually got 3 times as many rushing touchdowns as the Packers and the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Like, Jamal Williams has been nothing short of amazing as you sit here and look at on your screen, right? Like, he's got more than Derrick Henry, more than Nick Chubb, more than Josh Jacobs or league winner Ken Walker, more than Jalen Hurts even. Anyway, so 12 rushing touchdowns leads the field. Like, he's the 5th best running back in fantasy. He's a locked-in RB1, until further notice.
Low-end RB1.
DeAndre Swift, gets the touchdown, right? But he had 8 touches in this game. Once again, another game with just single-digit touches, and I feel like that's going to always be the case with him. He's had under 8 rush attempts in 6 to 7 games he's played. He's only had 1 game. This one's shocking to me. He's only had 1 game with more than 3 receptions. They're just not using him in the passing game, which is so weird given his skill set, Jay. For the 3rd straight game, he's played 31% of the snaps or fewer.
Yep. I think the problem with DeAndre Swift, it's not so much Jamal Williams for him, it's that Justin Jackson is now getting 25 snaps and 10 touches. Now he's got to compete with him as well.
Yeah.
What's going on there? So I think DeAndre Swift, my thought was always that at some point in the season it would flip and DeAndre Swift would just become the guy. I don't think that's the bet anymore. I think Jamal Williams is definitely the guy you'd want going forward.
1,000%. Yeah, I mean, that guillotine league that I had that just lost, right? No, who's on my bench in that league is DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't even risk him.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, that's how good that team was, is that I was able to bench DeAndre Swift because I'm like, they're not going to use a lot. But, of course, he still scores. Yeah. Had I started DeAndre Swift over any of those other, like over Saquon Barkley, right? I'm moving on.
Well, now
I'm
you can
dead.
bench him forever.
I'm dead.
Yeah, he's benched
forever.
Yeah. All right.
Ever.
Hopefully not on the bench this week, but he might be, is Justin Fields, who gets injured in the final drive against Atlanta. We'll see what the upshot of that is. But until that point, he'd been, his usual self. Again, 85 rushing yards and a rushing TD, just Justin Fieldsy. You
told me on Fantasy Football Pregame that you didn't think this was sustainable.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is.
It's sustained.
It's sustained.
Yeah, well, he didn't get the 60-yard rush, but he still produces value each week that he's healthy.
Fantastic. I mean, right, over 80 rushing yards now in 5 of the past 6 games. Yep. I believe he had 85 rushing yards in this one as well. Throws a touchdown, runs for a touchdown. He is the 6th best quarterback in fantasy as we head into Monday Night Football. Unfortunately, who knows what's going to happen with Fields. Our fingers are crossed, but tomorrow will be a big day. You may need a quarterback for the rest of the – that's the concern here with Justin Fields. And by the way, Matthew Stafford, not that Matthew Stafford is fantasy relevant, but when you think about how important those two guys are, Fields and Stafford, to their teams, and where the season is for those two teams, do you think maybe, hey, you know what, let's just shut these guys down? Like, there's no reason, especially with Justin Fields, honestly, either of those guys, there's no reason with either of those guys to be back out there for competitive NFL reasons, because it's not their season. And both those guys are such key parts of the future.
I think Fields has played so well that he's more likely to get shut down now because they've seen enough. Had he not played so well, they might want to put him out there to see if he's the guy for next year. He's definitely the guy for next year. Let's quickly touch on Kyle Pitts, who looks like he's suffered an MCL sprain, still waiting for the exact timeline and all of that. I mean, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 43 yards. That's kind of a good game for Kyle Pitts these days.
That's what's sad. I mean, look, I don't mean to make light of anyone's injury. So, you know, we hope the best for Kyle Pitts. But from a purely fantasy perspective, it's unfortunately like, I'm not sure it matters.
No.
You know what I mean? It honestly, again, we are not rooting for anyone to ever get injured. Absolutely not. I hope for the best for Kyle Pitts. But I would say for our purposes in terms of what we do here on the show, it actually might be helpful if we knew he was out, because then you get out of the, oh God, he's been so terrible,
yes,
and I don't want to start him, but he's Kyle Pitts, and what if this is the big game?
Yeah.
And what do I, you know? And so if at least he's out, then that decision's taken out.
Yes.
Don't
have to worry about Kyle Pitts versus Greg Dulcich.
No,
just start
exactly.
Greg Dulcich.
But that was the text I actually got from my buddy Lewis, was Kyle Pitts or Greg Dulcich. Like 100%. Like those are the kind of things that people are worrying about. And so, the best week this season was the Falcons bye week. Yeah. I didn't have to worry about, okay, should I start Kyle Pitts or not? So anyway, we hope for the best for Kyle Pitts. If you've been using him as your tight end, there's a chance you may need to go to the waiver wire, which we will deal with tomorrow. We will talk about all the potential quarterback fill-ins and all the potential tight end fill-ins. Worth noting, my bold prediction last week on Fantasy Football Pregame was 120 total yards and a touchdown for David Montgomery. You know what you got? Over 120 total yards and a touchdown.
Good for you.
Boom,
we're going to break.
I wish
when we come back,
Weekend
league. Warriors. Yeah.
Come back if you want, or if not, it doesn't matter. I'll still be ranting. I'm very upset.
Download the RotoWorld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster and get the latest injury updates, Matthew Berry. Player news plus much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today.
And one update that's on the RotoWorld app, I am sure, is that the NFL Network is reporting this. This happened just over the commercial break, Jay, is that, I'm quoting here the tweet from Ian Rappaport. Sources, Falcons standout tight end Kyle Pitts is believed to have suffered a torn MCL that would require surgery. This is following his MRI today. A brutal blow to one of the game's best young players. He'll have a second opinion before deciding what's next. Torn MCLs are not good. I don't believe so. That's me. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I feel like a sprained MCL is not as bad as a torn MCL. Feels like he's definitely going to miss some time. On the season, Kyle Pitts is tight end 21 on a points per game basis. He hasn't been a top 20 fantasy tight end this year. He's had a 27% target share, but given how run heavy the Falcons are, it's still less than 6 targets a game. I think you can wait to see, I suppose, but if he's going to miss any amount of time, and it sounds like he's going to, if I'm in a redraft league and you haven't already, cut him. Yep. You are looking for another tight end when we get into waivers tomorrow.
Okay, that's bad news. Let's get to some better news, and let's talk weekend Warriors. Let's start off with Joe Burrow, who finishes as QB2. He destroys the Steelers. We thought that might be an ugly game. It was ugly for the defenses, but Joe Burrow...
And me. It was ugly for me. I've decided to make this entire show about me. Because again, in the guillotine league, well, no, because one of the team that I was competing against, the team that like stupidly started Devontae Smith and Gabe Davis and all these high volatile players that he lucked out with touchdowns, this thing, he also had Joe Burrow.
Right.
And so you're like, Joe Burrow, like, no, you know what he did? He dumped off to Samaje Perine. He got 3 touchdowns from Samaje Perine. The total of those 3 passes was less than 10 yards. And yet, if you look at the box score, you know, he's got like whatever, you know, something like 50 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, look at this. Samaje Perine, over 30 fantasy points. Samaje Perine just, had a monster game. And honestly, literally, like if you go back and you watch that game, it was nothing but dump-offs to Samaje Perine that he then takes the distance. And so I feel like even though Joe Burrow got all the credit, it was really Samaje Perine, right? I mean, he had the 29-yard touchdown catch. Samaje Perine had 52 yards receiving. And so you look at Joe Burrow, 355. Really, it should have been 300 yards and 1 touchdown.
Well, it's like I always say when you're a Super Bowl contender, just give the ball to Samaje and get the hell out of the way. Because
sure.
Samaje Perine is
Samaje
the man.
Perine, which is why they lost the Super Bowl last year.
Because he couldn't get past Aaron Donald.
Yeah, and a ticky-tack, pass interference called down at the end. The very ticky-tack that was not like what they called the rest of the game. But whatever, I'm not bitter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the rest of the Bengals as well, outside of the Samaje experience, performed too. T. Higgins was the big one, 9 receptions for 148 receiving yards.
He was great.
And he was great. Joe Mixon obviously leaves the game early, which allows the Samaje experience to really take flight.
And that's the point. Like, my bitching aside, right, the fact of the matter is Samaje Perine is a very valuable insurance running back. And if Joe Mixon is to miss any time, hopefully we'll get an update tomorrow, but Samaje Perine needs to be rostered in a lot more leagues because while I'm not expecting 3 touchdowns every game, the fact of the matter is that when he has filled in for Joe Mixon, he has been very, very good. And so Samaje Perine, is pretty good. Upcoming schedule for the Bengals: Titans, Chiefs, Browns, Bucks. So definitely a mixed bag in terms of defenses they'll face. But, Joe Burrow locked in as a fantasy starter here. Other side of the ball here, how about Najee Harris?
Back.
Like the ghost of Najee Harris.
He's back.
Undertaker gift coming back up.
Yeah. Might finish the year better than Saquon Barkley the rest of the way at this pace with Saquon's 15 to 22. He has 90 rushing yards, gets the receiving work, though, which is the key. 4 receptions for 26 yards. That helps you in PPR leagues. We got your tweet on the screen. Where is that Najee Harris been?
And that was after the play where he ran towards the end zone and leaped over. He looked spry.
Yeah.
He looked young and spry. He looked very Trent Richardson-like.
Yes.
Which is what
shedding the tag.
Yes.
Our tag. Mainly your tag. But our tag.
That's fine. I'll own it. But he's now had 20 touches and 80 or more scrimmage yards in 3 of the past 4 games, whereas he had 1 such game through the first 6 weeks of the season. And so suddenly starting to look like the guy we all drafted. And so that was nice here. Again, and I think your point about the receiving work, 4 for 26 as a pass catcher. Over the last 4 games, he's averaging 4.4 yards per carry. Whatever it was, whether it was the leaking of, hey, Jaylen Warren might take over this job, or whatever mental gymnastics they did, it has worked. Najee Harris is back in as a low-end running back 1.
Yep. A guy who never left outside of that one weird game against New Orleans is Davante Adams, who goes off much to your chagrin. 13 targets, 7 receptions, just a casual 141 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, including the walk-off home run.
Yeah.
Davante, past 3 games,
I like Davante Adams. Why was that to my chagrin?
I thought he was in the guillotine league.
I have him on my other guillotine. I'm in 2. I'm moving on to my other guillotine league. Thanks to number 7.
I thought Guillermo's might have started Davante.
No. Guillermo wouldn't be so lucky as to have Davante Adams. Yeah. No.
I don't think there's much to say here outside of Davante Adams is really, really good. And Derek Carr, who maybe was holding him back a little bit earlier on, was putting him in positions to succeed yesterday. Raiders get the win in a blockbuster game of football.
Oh, my goodness. Like, I don't know that there's any...
What happened to Pat Surtain? Where's my man?
Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't know why Nathaniel Hackett hasn't been fired.
Wow. Matthew Berry just heaving fire today.
Again, I never want anyone to be fired. Like, it's an awful thing,
sure?
right? Yeah. No, I know. I'm not rooting for anyone. I want to be clear here. I'm not rooting for anyone to be fired. Being fired sucks, and it sucks for NFL personnel and coaches who have wives and spouses and kids, and it disrupts your entire family, and it's awful. And people know your business, and it just sucks. But that is the business we live in, right? When you become a highly paid NFL head coach, that's part of the gig. And when you become a highly paid NFL head coach for a multi-billionaire who signs a quarterback, who gets you a franchise quarterback at $250 million, which is what he did, and one of the best defenses in the NFL, and you've only won 2 games through 11 weeks, yes, people start asking questions. Is that legit?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
do you kind of want Mike McCarthy to be fired, though? I feel like you're off.
Yeah,
Mike
that's
McCarthy.
personal.
Yeah,
that one's personal.
Okay.
That's one personal.
Hackett, I mean, I don't want to be the Bill Simmons body language expert, but he looked like he had no idea what he was doing on the sideline. I don't know why he didn't call timeout on the last drive that the Raiders had. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it just there were a lot of, and it's not the first time we've seen some sort of brain farts, in the last minutes of a game that you thought the Broncos could or should have won, and they did not. So I feel bad. Let's ride right into the ground. Anyway, so it's really interesting here. Back to Pittsburgh for one quick second. I just want to mention George Pickens. Another huge game for Pickens as well. He's now had 14 or more fantasy points in 4 of the 6 games where he's gotten at least 6 targets. By the way, should have had an even bigger day. Absolutely just dropped what like a walk-in touchdown, which, by the way, in a game in which I lost in another league where I had Pickens and I lost by like 5 points, and I have Pickens in that league. If he catches that thing, I win. So, anyway, yesterday was not my day.
Let's talk another superstar rookie wide receiver, Chris Olave. 5 receptions, 102 yards, gets the deep touchdown bomb, lights up Jalen Ramsey. And also Juwan Johnson. How about him? Just scores touchdowns for fun and keeps producing. It's a bit of fantasy viability in New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything we need to say about Chris Olave. He's awesome. He's quarterback proof. He's averaging over 14 fantasy points per game with Dalton. He's averaging over 14 fantasy points with Winston. He's a top 20 locked-in wide receiver and, borderline top 10 in the right situation. But Juwan Johnson, someone we'll talk about more tomorrow as we're looking for more tight ends. He's now been a top 10 fantasy tight end 4 of the past 5 weeks. He's had 3 straight games with over 40 yards. He has scored in 4 of the past 5 games as well. And so on a Saints team that doesn't seem to have a lot of weapons, because apparently they no longer consider Alvin Kamara a weapon, which, don't get me started. Juwan Johnson is certainly one of them. He's tight end 5 as we head into Monday Night Football. Alvin Kamara, just as long as we're mentioning him real quick, has now had under 13 fantasy points in 3 straight games. He's had 1 game this entire year in which he's scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
This is Alvin Kamara. Like he had 3 touchdowns in 1 game, but whatever. They all came in that 1 week 6 game. I wouldn't mind Dennis Allen getting the can.
Okay, let's go. One guy who's not getting the can is John Harbaugh, one of the best coaches in the NFL. Not. Let's go to Baltimore. DeMarcus Robinson, is he wide receiver 1 in Baltimore going forward?
I mean, it's worth noting that he's had at least 8 targets and 12 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3. He's a nice wide receiver. You know what I mean? He's had success in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. Just like they have Andrews, and then, Devin Duvernay. And by the way, Lamar Jackson, your boy. Yeah, you're a guy. You're ride or die.
Yesterday.
I feel like you're closer to die.
Yes.
I mean, like, he couldn't do it against Carolina. He's an interesting name. We'll get more into him tomorrow. Probably should be picked up, but it's only his 2nd game this year with over 30 yards. I'd want to see some more consistency from him. Feels like much like the running backs in Baltimore, it's going to be wide receiver by committee.
Yep, that makes sense. All right, let's talk about some kickers. I don't think we've talked kickers all year long, but they deserve mention today because all of the kickers on this list, and we'll go through the names, they all scored more points than Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Dalvin Cook, Dameon Pierce, and those heroes are Tyler Bass, Brett Maher, Evan McPherson, Harrison Butker, Daniel Carlson, Brandon McManus, Matthew Wright, Younghoe Koo, Joey Sly, and the great Chase McLaughlin.
It was so gross yesterday. I am in a couple of leagues with kickers because the commissioner set it up that way. I hate kickers. I hate playing in fantasy leagues with kickers. I'm only in these leagues for various reasons. Like, one of them was a work league that I got set up. Not this work league that we're in, but another one's a different work league that I got set up in. The commissioner set up with kickers. I'm like, why are we playing with kickers? And the guy's like, I don't know. Whatever. There's like a couple of legacy leagues that I'm in that I can't get the commissioner to change. I hate kickers. Don't play with kickers.
Don't play with kickers.
Don't play with kickers.
Yep.
But if you do,
all they do is outperform Justin Jefferson. All right, we're going to go to a promo, my favorite one of the year so far, Matthew. Release the Hounds. It's a Thanksgiving tradition like no other. The National Dog Show presented by Purina. Thousands of dogs, Matthew, compete for the title of Best in Show. Thanksgiving at noon Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Let's go to break. When we come back, Sunday Scaries.
Can you bet on that? At BetMGM? Let me get some odds.
Yeah, we'll find out.
I want odds on the shaggy one.
Second half, especially the offense, 7 possessions, only 2 total yards.
Dog. I mean, if Zach continues to struggle, do you have to go to Mike?
No, that's the furthest thing on my mind. I've told you guys before, Zach's our quarterback, and we've got to find ways to help him get better.
As an offense, though, I mean, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. I mean, do you feel like you let the defense down at all?
No. I love how definitive he is with a no. And I feel like...
Really inspires confidence.
It really inspires confidence. I feel like you could have some fun with that. Like just that clip. B-Rubes, I don't know if we can cue that up and try that, but just... So like, let me ask you a question. Like, Zach Wilson, Matthew Berry from Peacock. Do you know who Elijah Moore is?
Down at all?
No. Okay, let me try this one again. Listen, I came down for breakfast the other morning, and I saw somebody young running out the back door holding my mom's coffee cup. Was that you?
The defense down at all?
No. Are you sure? It wasn't you? All right.
That was Matthew Berry from Peacock. Zach,
yeah, that's Matthew Berry from Matthew Berry from Peacock here. Matthew Berry from Peacock. One last question here. Zach, is Joe Flacco elite?
Down at all? No.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting comments from Zach Wilson. Let's take a look at some of those offensive stats that he put up against the Patriots.
If you enjoyed that bit, don't worry. That bit's coming back.
More punts than completions. There were 10 punts, 9 completions, 77 passing yards. That's across a full game. 59 yards on the ground, 2.1 yards per play. That seems high. I think we might have to double check that. It didn't seem like they could get anything going. And we actually have video of the Jets offense from yesterday, Matt.
Okay, let's do it.
So this is the Jets. That's Zach Wilson.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, taking flight.
Oh, no. He sailed the ball over another receiver's head on a screen. And he's in fuego. That's his press conference at the end there.
By the way, do you think the Jets offense actually got that high at one point?
Yeah.
Do you think that's being too kind?
Yeah, that's more yards than the Jets ever got yesterday. I don't know what else there is to say.
I'm going to compare two quarterbacks. Two quarterbacks through their first 20 starts.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson's made 20 starts. Zach Wilson's first 20 starts in the NFL, 6.3 yards per attempt, a 13-16 touchdown to interception ratio, a passer rating of 70.7.
Yeah.
Quarterback B, 6.2 yards per pass attempt, so a tenth of a yard less, a 15-13 touchdown interception ratio, so slightly better because Zach's is 13-16. This guy is 15-13 touchdown interception ratio and a 70.6 passer rating versus Zach's, which is 70.7. So quarterbacks fairly statistically similar?
Fairly similar.
Do you know who quarterback B is?
Is it Jamarcus Russell?
It's Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, I was going to guess him or Jake Locker or Christian Hackenberg or whatever.
Zach Wilson. It's Jamarcus Russell, who is, for our younger viewers, who is fairly or not widely considered to be the biggest bust in quarterback history, in NFL quarterback history, right? I mean, is that...
That's fair.
Regardless of whether you think that or not, that's the general consensus. For me, ultimately, look, it sounds like they're sticking by Zach Wilson. I don't know that actually happens. But here's my question is, for the fantasy relevant players on this team, Jay, Michael Carter, Garrett Wilson, both have bad games against the Patriots. They're not the only ones to have bad games against the Patriots. A lot of people do.
Good defense.
A very good defense. Second time they've played them in a short period of time. Patriots were off the bye to prepare. Of course, so were the Jets, but whatever. Are you out on Michael Carter and Garrett Wilson until you see something, or is this just a bad day at the office?
I think Michael Carter is still fine to start going forward just because of the workload and because of how bad Zach Wilson is, and they have a favorable matchup against Chicago where they are 6-point favorites despite what Zach Wilson threw up. Garrett Wilson, I think you give it one more week against the weaker defense in Chicago, but not feeling great about it. Let's go to the other New York team, though. Saquon Barkley, 15
I agree with you. Garrett Wilson's going to be I need to see it a little bit more, but better days are ahead for the Jets.
Yep. Okay, any concern with Saquon Barkley rest of the season? I think you just have to fire him up.
It was just a bad day at the office. Just, single-handedly out here killing guillotine teams and other teams as well, Saquon. And you don't love the matchup at Dallas. But you're still starting them.
You have to start Saquon.
In terms of Is there an actual item? I don't think so. You're not trying to sell him low, or whatever.
Not
You're
at
not
his
trying
lowest point right now.
Yeah, I mean, I still think,
What are we doing with New York pass catchers with Wan'Dale Robinson, unfortunately, with the torn ACL? Darius Slayton time?
Yeah, I think so. He's had at least 13 fantasy points in 4 of the past 6 games. He's the only guy that you feel good about. Again, they're traveling on a short week to Dallas and Thanksgiving, so kind of want to see that. Then they play Washington, Philadelphia, and Washington. So it's a really tough schedule coming up here. If someone was willing to give me a top 5 player for Saquon, I might consider that, because it is worth noting that he's had only 1 game with 20 receiving yards since week 5. So the passing game usage hasn't been there recently, but he's still Saquon given how bad running back is out there. I'm probably still sticking with Saquon. Awful news about Wan'Dale Robinson, a guy that we liked quite a bit, but he's now out for the year. I do think Slayton and Barkley are the only 2 guys, but whatever. Daniel Jones continues to be a viable QB streamer. He also had a good game yesterday.
Yep. Okay, someone who didn't have a great game was Miles Sanders against the improving Indianapolis defense that has always been tough against the run. 47 rushing yards. You hit on the under on your bet on his receiving yards because he gets 1 reception for 1 yard.
That's crazy. The line was 6.5 receiving yards. I took the under and I won it. Yeah.
That's a good bet. So he's just a touchdown-dependent flex going forward?
Pretty much. He's just got no receiving game usage as well. He's had under 15 touches in 3 of the past 4 games. If there's anything positive, he plays the Packers this week, which is, a team that you can absolutely run on. I think they get right against the Packers. I'm sticking with Miles Sanders.
Okay, let's race through.
Borderline top 20 guy here. Yes.
Let's race through these last 3 names. Dameon Pierce against your Commanders has a dreadful game, looking like he's maybe not game script independent anymore.
It was 1 bad game. It's his first game with under 12 fantasy points since week 2. And again, scoring was just down across the board in the NFL. Washington took command, which is what they do. Pick 6 immediately got them in a hole here as well. They play Miami next week. I'm willing to give Dameon Pierce 1 more week, no question about it. I'm not worried about it.
Okay, last name, DJ Moore. Do you have to bench him if Baker Mayfield remains the starter going forward?
They play Denver next week, 100%. And I'm nervous about Deontay Foreman as well. 11 rushes, 24 yards. This was we thought it would be a tough matchup, but the offense under Baker Mayfield just doesn't feel,
good.
Yes, good. Good is the word I was looking for.
Yep.
It just doesn't feel good, doesn't feel great. Baker Mayfield for Zach Wilson, who says no?
Yeah, I'd rather have Baker,
the answer is America.
Yeah, whoever wins, we lose.
At any rate, I'm still sticking by Deontay Foreman as a flex. I'm out on DJ Moore until PJ Walker comes back.
All right, let's go to break.
Return,
Monday Night Football, best bets, courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Matthew Barry.
Sure.
The action never stops at BetMGM. Sign up now using bonus code BERRY and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Simply download the BetMGM app today or go to betmgm.com and enter bonus code BERRY to make your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. And let's take a look at the most bet props at BetMGM for Monday Night Football. And a couple of 49ers, Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. McCaffrey to score first touchdown is plus 450. McCaffrey to score a touchdown anytime is minus 140, and it's the same price for George Kittle over 3.5 receptions in Mexico City. This is last call, Matthew Barry. What's your best bet?
Yeah, well, listen. First off, thank you to my friends at BetMGM. Thank you for betting, because when everything else goes wrong, it did with you at least have some bets, and I won some bets last night, which makes me feel good. I always like betting on the Patriots defense. I just want to mention them real quick because we run out of time. They're the number 1 defense in fantasy so far this year. It's just worth noting. They've had 13 fantasy points or more in 4 of their past 6. But in terms of what bets do I like tonight, give me George Kittle. So you saw one of the most popular bets is over 3.5 receptions. Look, and we always talk about start your tight ends against Arizona. Yeah. I like George Kittle over 41.5 receiving yards. Arizona allows a league-high 77.5 receiving yards to opposing tight ends. They're giving up 77.6 to be specific yards per game to opposing tight ends. 7 different times this year, a tight end has had at least 45 or more yards against the Arizona Cardinals. He's George Kittle. Give me the over on 41.5 receiving yards. That number seems way too low.
Okay, I'm going with another guy who got snubbed by the Warriors cheerleaders courtside for Jimmy Garoppolo, and that is Christian McCaffrey, taking his receiving yards over 35.5. He's had 15 targets his first 2 games. properly locked in as a San Francisco 49er, not counting the Chiefs game where he was just signed. So over 35.5. He's hit that both of the past 2 weeks. Also like Jimmy Garoppolo, over 1.5 rushing yards. He's gone over 4 straight. I think against the Cardinals, he'll get that done. The big point on McCaffrey, similar to your tight end point, they're the 3rd worst team defending running backs. So they seem to struggle, guys going over the middle and leaking out.
And not only is it a divisional game, but think about Kittle and McCaffrey being snubbed by the Warriors cheerleaders.
I think it's so much
They've got
to prove.
A chip on their shoulder.
Yes.
They're going to ball out here on Monday Night
100%.
Football. And
Take that, Jimmy.
They're going to go. They're going to be like, oh well, okay, American cheerleaders don't like us, but what about the ones here in Mexico?
Yes.
They're going to impress them. For Jay Croucher, I'm Matthew Berry. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Good luck on Monday Night Football. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.